Wow, we are on week 48 of our toolkit journey this year, and we are on the instinct card. And the fable is the wolf of white light. You know, it's really interesting because the wolf is actually in the fourth chakra, right? So section, because remember, it's the fourth week in the seventh chakra. So it really is about seventh chakra connecting with our heart and matters of our heart. What's fascinating to me is in the fable, which I'm not going to reveal too much, but in the fable, which is actually the shortest fable in the entire book, in the entire deck, is the thing about it is the wolf is actually traveling to speak to the great servant. He is on his way to, I want to say, commune with God consciousness. And part of this journey, part of what he's doing and reflects with us is what are we journeying toward? What message, what energy do we want the great spirits, the great servant, to send out to the world in a universal consciousness with us? Because one of the things we have to remember is there's only 4 weeks left to the year. And if we're actually doing this in the order, which is how we're doing it, really starting to remember that at this point, the journey's begun, and the wolf doesn't go backwards. He is on his journey forward. And that really shows us the wolf, the spirit guide of what are we journeying toward, not only toward the end of the year, but where are we going to be standing? And what are we asking the great servant to support us, and we support him, her, in creating. So when we look at the power of this, and there's so many people that'll say, oh, especially when people are looking for love, so there's no good men, women, whatever they're looking for around. And I think, where I live is what they'll say, where I live. And I'm like, I've always had that idea that when you're ready, the person can be looking in a broom closet and you're hiding in the broom closet. In other words, they will find you. You can be doing everything wrong. And when it is an intention you've set, as long as you stand still in a way, as long as you keep moving, it's either standing still or moving forward. When people say be still, it's an internal stillness, but we're still progressing forward because we haven't given up on our intention. So when people say it's not possible or it can't happen for me, they're right. They're really right, because you see, they're sending that message out that it's absolutely not something that will be in their line of sight. It will not be on their path. So the wolf really talks about the idea of being on your path, and there is energetically, the quote from the card, from the fable, is really, there is a guide inside of us. And what's interesting for me is the key word is instinct. Now, yes, the instinct is really what that third chakra is about, right? It's fight or flight. But what's powerful here is that the wolf has moved past the third chakra. He's actually walking into and creating the fourth chakra. Really, what is our heart calling us forward to do? Because you see, as the wolf, as our spirit guide, he's actually protecting us on the road ahead. So the message also comes, following your instinct, following what you sense is right, is the way to go. And I'm going to share this with you because I think it really ties in, and it's important that I say to you that, as we're looking at this, as we're moving into that next year, really, we're looking at what's important to us. The wolf really says, keep going. We are taking our message to the higher spirits, because one of the things that I really believe around Christmas and New Year's, obviously, and we do this a lot in the States, is that that New Year is really a new beginning. And I think that the other thing is to really be in that instinctual place of declaring something complete. So there's a couple things that are rattling in my head, But I want to be very clear that even though, oh, I know it's it, even though it's instinct, right? It is instinctually going toward the heart. And when I say that, you know, I went on a trip recently. I was with a friend of mine, a buddy of mine, and, you know, she and I were talking. We were just talking about whatever, you know, business stuff. And I said, oh yeah, I said, I really loved working with my assistant. She was great. And she, you know, she's going to be leaving. And she said, really? I said, well, I told you a little earlier. She said, but wait a minute. How do you know she's leaving? Has she told you? I said, oh, no. I just feel it. Like I have this instinct. And by the way, when you get a hit about something, it comes into your gut. It's like you just know. You know, it's like kind of, it's beyond intuition. It's your instinct, because there's that feeling like something's not right. And that is an instinct, because an instinctual message is something that can override the brain and go right into, and by the way, we are trained with our instinct as a survival mechanism. So instinct really does tie into something we know to be true, but a lot of times people say, that's probably not true. You know, years ago, I was dating somebody, and I'm sure all of you have been through this. You know, and I just had this feeling that it was over. I mean, we went out a few times, but I had this feeling that it was just over. And I was saying that to a friend, yeah, I feel it's just over. And she said, well, it's only been like 2-3 days. He hasn't called you. I said, no, I feel it. And you know, when you feel it, remember that second and third chakra, that's that feeling, right? And then your heart knows it's true. So when we follow our heart, and of course, sure enough, a couple of days later, you know, he finally had the nerve to say, this isn't working out. And I was like, yeah, I know, you know, and we're good. But I think that what I'm trying to say to you is that the wolf representing instinct is really those, it tells us that our prior chakra, remember, first, second, and third chakra are really our foundation. Our fourth opens the gateway to the divine. So keeping in mind that, you know, the wolf is our instinct, and the messages keep going. And the message is, what do you want to deliver? What is it that you are looking to create? Because that's what's going to come up for you as your, if I can say it, win this year. So when the wolf comes up, keep that in mind, that this week is really remembering that there's a guide inside of you. And the focus is that there is a guide inside of us. And that guide tends to be third chakra that tells us yes or no, I'm going to follow this or I'm not. So I'm just going to put on my glasses so I can actually see. So, you know, I really love this, and this is the message of the week, and I kind of am dancing around it, but here it is. There's a real magic when we work with our gut instinct in the seventh chakra. This week is a chance to look at how you use your instinct to make meaning of circumstances and to create thoughts and even things in your world. Ultimately, this fable is about being guided by spirit. So what I want to say to you is keep that in mind, that following our instinct, you know, how many times that people say, I'm going to follow my instinct. And, you know, instinct is a very masculine energy. There's nothing wrong with that, because I think there's that, you know, we've got to be in our intuition, our no. It's okay to be in your instinct, because you see, when we shut down our instinct, we make foolish choices from our heart. You know, oh no, you know, if I had said, nah, that guy's not gonna break up with me. He's crazy about me, and I'm going to invest more in this relationship. Well, guess what? That would mean me being in denial. What happens when you do that? What happens when you shut down your instinct is you automatically get into situations you regret later. So keeping in mind that your instinct, and if you look at any breakup, okay, you've ever been in, anything you've invested in, there was an instinct that felt wrong about it. You know, I think that that's a key thing to say to you. You know, I think I've said this to many of you. There was a guy years ago, I was trying to get into real estate, investing, right? And there was this guy, Bill Ridge, and he was a mortgage lender up in Oregon. And, you know, because he said to me, oh, it's just, you can buy in with my share at 15,000 and it's actually 50. I'll put up the rest. And then what we'll do, now it's already sounding like what to some of you, but the fact is I was naive. I was silly. But here's the thing. When he said that to me, I had this feeling like something's not right, but I went for, what did I do? I overrode my instinct and went to my heart that was like, what can I do with all that investment money? And so what happens is something in there is making me ignore my instinct. It's just like somebody who says, I don't understand, like, you know, and this is a perfect example. I had somebody who I was working with and she said, you know, I don't get it. We've been married for over 20 years. Why is he leaving? He says he doesn't love me anymore. And you see, here's the thing. Her instinct was telling her there was a problem. And yet she was still looking for, why is he doing this to me? Where, you know, and he wasn't a bad guy, by the way. He ended up, you know, he was going to leave, you know, take care of her financially. She was set, you know, it wasn't like he was going to be a real, you know, meanie about it. He was actually going to be very civil, but she was more, I have to keep him. And I'm thinking, well, what is your instinct? And the thing is, as I talked to her, it was about her survival. She was like, how am I going to survive without him? You know, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. And I thought, you know, and I understand that. I understand that fear of losing something, but her instinct knew it was over. And I said to her, but he doesn't love you. He said he doesn't love you anymore. Why do you want that back? And she couldn't answer it. Because the truth is that it's not that she wanted him back. She wanted to ignore her instinct. She was trying to ignore her instinct that it was over, because the truth is then she would have the pain of her heart she had to deal with. But you see, what you and I, who've been through this, know is that on the other side of that rejection is God's protection. So we have to look at how, when we look at these cards and these fables, they actually connect in this seventh chakra to be a very universal consciousness of, and just to give you an example, and I'm just going to pull the cards right here. So if we really look at, you know, the idea of what came first, well, we really had to look at things with the neutrality. But you see, if we're looking at a relationship that's dying, we're really not going to be neutral. Why is he doing this? That's not a neutral stand. A neutral stand is, I am in incredible pain and I don't know why it's happening, but I'm here in the middle and I really am, I don't know. That's neutral. It's like, I don't know. I'm in pain. I don't know. The minute you jump into making meaning of it, you have an entirely different experience, and which is where we can look at what happened with the rejection card. Remember, in rejection, it was kind of like, rejection is God's protection. So maybe that emotional upset is really something that we're playing into, but we can't see it right now. Then we looked at the story with Nikita, that third, the third fable here, which was last week. And we looked at how her thinking was keeping her stuck and how it was her own words that did that to her. And finally, our instinct has no words. You see, the wolf just travels on, because the instinct knows what to do without the mishigas, if you will, the pain and suffering. Because the truth is that all this person can do right now is trudge forward, right? There's no, you know, there's really nothing to do. I remember, and I know we've all remembered those moments when somebody has said, I don't love you, or I'm leaving, or we've been swindled. Like I was swindled out of the 15,000 by Bill Ridge. And I kept thinking that can't be, right? But it was, it really was. And, you know, these are the things that, and by the way, I say his name because it doesn't matter anymore. I haven't been able to find him. He's never paid me back, whatever. But, you know, I trusted this person. And this is the thing, is that the thing to keep in mind, though, that the trust I put in was in ignoring my intuition, if you will, my instinct that something wasn't right here. So for me, and people are like, well, you're a psychic. How did you not know? Well, you know what? When you get caught up in greed or an ulterior motive, or someone plays into my vanity, right? Or they're going to say they're going to help me and protect me, that may be a trigger. So that, you know, now I kind of know if something doesn't, you know, look, If it doesn't, I don't experience it as right. If I have a gut feeling, I don't do it. So with the wolf, let's talk about that. Now you're looking at the heart, which, as I've mentioned, is that middle part before we move to the higher chakras. So let's just take a look at, what does Tori have to say? Tori's tip. The wolf in himself is a warrior energy. He protects, endures harsh conditions, and he survives. He represents the power of the human spirit. We love Wolf because he taps into the survivor in all of us. His message is to look forward, not backward. The risk in looking behind us is that we'll miss what's right in front of us. And I'm getting truth bumps as I say that. That is the overall concept, the key of the Wolf of White Light. So as we look at that, you're going to see in the, I'm going to get to, because I really encourage you to look at the first impressions here, because, sometimes in life, the idea of where we have self-protection, we may not need it there anymore. For example, blocking love out. You may have that part of you that's blocking that because you have to protect yourself, or you had to at one time. So we need to look at where we need to reassign some of our warrior energy. And that's also what the wolf can represent to us. Finally, in the setting your intention for the week, I think there's a key here of what we conceal from others. And I'm going to share this. Wolf energy is often created by the wounded inner child. This protective mechanism, while important at the time, may now be operating in overdrive. This week, set your intention to look at the coping devices that no longer work for you. Don't attempt to get rid of Wolf, but instead use him to support you in any new endeavor. And I'm going to talk about this more in other videos that I do, because I think that's very important. But I really want to encourage you in the solo activity this week, and looking at sometimes the things that we remove from our life are more valuable than the things we are going to add to them. So in many ways, Wolf is a simplification of the overall theme of our life. And as we look at these last 4 weeks, following that instinct and recognizing when it comes up and it may not be necessary anymore, especially if some of us are spending time with our families, this can be like, woo, they installed the buttons, they know how to press them. So one of the things we can look at is, oh, that's interesting. Heart, I love that person, and look what they're doing in this moment. And I can now see that they are not operating my highest good because they're in a fear place. So, in that place of fear. So I say this to you as looking at, and by the way, again, I'm going to underscore that meditation can be as simple as reading it on the page. It doesn't have to be something you go do and om on some hill. I want to say that it's so important that we get that the wolf is our guide to spirit. See, that's my job, in a sense, is to step out of the way and let the clients or the people I coach or work with to find that direct connection to their God consciousness. And that's what Wolf is really telling us, is that what do we need to clean today so our path ahead is clear? And remember, he is your spirit guide. Now, I'd love to hear some of the things that you really are looking at in your life, old behaviors perhaps, that you can just either stop doing, or that you've just noticed, wow, I noticed I'm mean to my cousin, or whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to have a solution to it, but I'd like to hear this week how you are perceiving the forward motion of opening your heart to new experiences in the coming year. I will see you next week, and next week we will talk about destiny. I'll see you then.